Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Up, the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I'm Dr. Lindsay Weitzel, migraine strategist, founder of the Facebook group Migraine Nation, and chronic daily migraine survivor. I am super excited to tell everyone that I am here today with Joe Coe. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Great. So happy to be on your show, Lindsay.
I'm so happy you're here. So many of you know Joe. He is very well loved in the migraine community. Joe is the host of the Talking Head Pain podcast, and he's also the director of education and digital strategy for the Global Healthy Living Foundation. He does a lot of work in the migraine and headache and pain and arthritis community. He is an amazing advocate. He is an activist. His face is very well known. So he's also super fun and super funny. So I'm excited for this episode. And what we're going to do today is have a somewhat informal chat about living with chronic migraine and how advocacy helps us. So many people in our audience are already engaged in migraine or headache advocacy, or are thinking about it or thinking what they can do. They're probably in many different Facebook groups, wondering how they can get involved. But it's pretty well-known fact that you start to feel better once you get involved in the community, once you start to help yourself, help other people. There's a lot of different types of advocacy, right? You advocate for yourself, others, and then it starts to just be the whole group. Let's talk a little bit about, let's just start, tell them about your migraine journey when it started first, and then we'll talk about what advocacy means to you.
Sure thing, Lindsay. So I started to get migraine when I was around the age of 12 or 13, late middle school. And I didn't know I was having an attack. I was feeling a little off, and my mother said to me, go to your room, take this cold rag, turn off the lights, and go lay down. Because she had lived with migraine for a big chunk of her life. So she, I guess, realized what was happening to me even before I did. So I did. I ended up getting the traditional headache symptoms. As I got older, they progressed. I was getting them more frequently. Went to my primary care physician in my early 20s. During an attack, they had to take me into the exam room very quickly. He diagnosed me right then and there with migraine after he gave me an injection of a triptan, and I felt better. And he's like, you have migraine, something you're gonna have to deal with. You know, if it gets worse, if you get more of them, we'll talk. And I'm here today at 36.
Okay. And are you chronic at this time? Like how often, how many days a month are you affected by migraine?
That's a great question. I wouldn't have considered myself chronic until I got involved in advocacy, and not because of advocacy. Advocacy didn't make me chronic.
Advocacy did not cause this problem.
What it did do is make me realize that it's not normal, at least for people, to have a headache every day or to have some type of headache. So while I wasn't having a migraine attack that was making me not be able to function every day, I was having a headache almost every day. And I thought that was normal. I thought everyone just had some type of low-level headache every day. So I have been on better treatments the past couple of years as I started to proactively manage this, understanding that because of advocacy, that there is better things out there. So right now, I would get attacks probably 2 to 3 times a month. Prior to that, I was having headaches every day.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to ask you a few things about your personal migraine journey, but what does advocacy mean to you?
Advocacy is a way that we impact change, either through ourselves, by self-advocating, by leveraging our stories and our experiences to help others, or by really trying to pinpoint an issue that we can affect change on. So when we think of advocacy, in some sense, we think of legislation, and we think of going to our state representatives or congressional representatives and asking them to take migraine disease and migraine issues more seriously. But advocacy can be something as small as deciding that I'm going to tell someone that I have migraine that I didn't
Hmm.
tell before, to as big as helping draft legislation with your local state reps to impact change.
Right. So it starts with, I love what you said, because it starts with you. And I talk to so many people who aren't quite advocating for themselves, whether it's at home with their families or with their doctor, which is probably the most important step. If you're not advocating for yourself with your doctor, maybe you're not comfortable with that doctor and you need a new one. You need to know the right steps, the right things to say, to really be honest, stand up for yourself, talk about how migraine is impacting your life, get the treatment you need, get the right doctor, get to a specialist, etc. So it starts with you. And then if it's something that's on your heart that you're moved to do, then you can start helping other people in the community. You can start working Headache on the Hill, etc., on this larger scale, like you're talking about. So advocacy to me is a multi-layered thing, but it starts with you. Make sure you're advocating for yourself. So I love the way you said it.
And Lindsay, it's really important. I have found that it's sometimes hard for me to advocate for myself.
Right.
And I recently was in the ER for a migraine that I couldn't break with all of the things that I had.
Right.
And I was just exhausted. And I knew if I was with someone else that was having a migraine, I could be much more effective. But in that point, I couldn't self advocate. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we often place a lot of blame and guilt on ourselves, and we internalize
Mm-hmm.
that we have to be on all the time. Living with a disease like this means that we're going to have to pick and choose our battles.
Yes.
So also I advocate for being strategic with advocacy and cutting ourselves some slack.
Yes. And I love that you brought that up, because in my mind, I'm always telling people, once you feel guilty when you have migraine, or there's another word I'm reaching for, guilty, or just anything negative like that, you are without a doubt going in the wrong direction. Your brain is going in the wrong direction. And I always say it's the job of migraine to bring your brain down the rabbit hole, to make you feel guilty, sad, like you're not strong enough or doing a good job. And it's your job to pull your brain out of the rabbit hole and take it the other direction. So I'm so glad you used the word guilty, because that is not how we should be feeling. I don't think we should ever feel that way. So what has been the most frustrating part of the migraine journey for you?
I would say that it's a disease that we can't really predict, that
Mm,
is so personal. There is no like really clear cut track for people.
right.
So what works for me might not work for you.
Mm,
What one physician works with one of their patients might not work with another patient. So the hyper specialized nature of migraine, and that's why I think concepts like precision medicine and all these movements that we're seeing in healthcare are so important for migraine patients, because the more that
mhm,
we understand how our disease works,
right.
the better we can target treatment. So I'm really excited about that innovation in the future.
Okay. So it is such a diverse disease. So there's so many comorbidities. We're also different. It is not, you cannot put us in a box and assume that what the treatment that worked for you is going to work for me, or that I won't even react badly to the treatment that worked for you. And you're right. That is very frustrating. I would agree. And the timing thing, if you've got something hugely important like your wedding or your graduation, you just never know how you're going to feel that day. And that is hugely frustrating about migraine. I also think that the stigma is hugely frustrating. And sometimes it's the people who think that they don't stigmatize anybody that are stigmatizing you the most. Um, let's move to what positive thing has come out of having chronic migraine for you.
I love the migraine community. I
Hmm.
think that everyone in our community is so strong and supportive.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been exposed to people like you, Lindsay, people like work at the National Headache
Right.
Foundation, other nonprofits. that are doing this work to help the people that are laying in dark rooms and can't
Yeah,
do it. And it really is
exactly.
just inspiring. It's a community that comes together. We deal with a lot of issues. You talked about stigma and about lack of understanding. So the highlight for me of having migraine is that greater empathy that I've created for people with other invisible chronic diseases that I've learned from the migraine community.
That's a great answer. I love to hear that. I think that it is an amazing community. It's a community that cares about each other, cares about other people in general because of what we've all been through. I also think that the strength that all of us have developed because of what we've been through, such a strong group of people. And I think that that's what I answer when someone asks me what positive thing has come out of it is the strength I have and the strength I see in our group is just awesome. So let's talk a little bit about what made you, obviously you had this severe migraine history and the age of onset. So I had it since my first memory, chronic migraine. And I believe, even saying that having it come on in adolescence, I think that's icky. That is just an icky time in life to have migraines start. But what made you decide to get started in advocacy?
I don't think I had any choice based on
Mhm.
my calling in life to not be involved in advocacy in some
Right.
way. I came out in around that time as well,
Okay.
as a gay person,
Hmm.
and I got really involved in LGBTQ advocacy and social
Hmm.
justice. And then as I got older and as I developed a career in healthcare and with the Global Healthy Living Foundation, I became a health advocate. So I
Okay.
transferred all of these skills that I learned doing advocacy and activism
Right.
to healthcare advocacy and activism around
Hmm.
migraine and other chronic diseases. So
Hmm.
to me, it wasn't a choice, it would just
Right.
naturally happen. And I'm a strong believer that there are many of us that have the ability to do this, and there are many of us that don't. And for
Hmm.
those of us that do and have the capacity and have the ability and have the skills and have the energy and the passion and the drive to do it, it's our responsibility to do it. And we can take breaks, and I certainly do. But if
Right.
we're called to that work, we should embrace it. And I feel very much called to this work.
I love that answer. And I think it's such a good point. There's so many of us that are just too sick to do this. And I feel responsible to do it for the others who can't. I also just feel like that's what my skill set is, and I'm going to do it. And I also feel like I think it's important to point out, in case you're one of these people, it took me years to become well enough that I could work in migraine every day and talk about it every day, because my work is what distracts me from my pain. And so for years, there was no way I could talk about migraine all day, because it would just trigger my pain more, or at least would not allow me to be distracted from my constant pain. Right. So if you're one of those people and you're like, wow, I wish I could be an advocate all day, every day, you'll get there. Just keep working on your wellness. That's what happened to me. I just had to continue. It took me years to get here, but this was my goal, was to be well enough that I could be an advocate. And so I think that that's a very good point that you made, is, some of us are doing this for the people who can't.
I
And
so agree. And it's okay if you can. I want people to hear that too.
right,
There's nothing wrong if you can't, because you're doing a lot to get through each day.
right,
And that's what we don't understand with people that live with diseases that we can't see and touch and feel and understand.
right. How did you start advocacy? What was your first, how did you get involved?
In migraine advocacy or
Yes,
advocacy
or
in general.
headache advocacy and migraine advocate. Suddenly I
So
can't say
yeah,
advocacy.
it happens.
It happens.
That's aphasia, right? I've learned all
Yes.
these terms.
Well,
Um,
I think it's dysphagia. Yes.
this
Go ahead.
it's one of those
It's one
things.
of
It's
those.
something that happens to us. I found that it was a very interesting convergence of really just random things that happened that provided me opportunities to share my story
Okay.
around living with a chronic disease
Mm-hmm.
and working with the Global Healthy Living Foundation that is disease agnostic. We work with people with chronic disease across the board,
Mm-hmm.
primarily through a group called creaky joints, so autoimmune diseases and inflammatory arthritis, which there
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of crossover. There's a lot of intersections between the communities.
Right.
So it was just a natural progression for my work that I'm doing professionally to decide that I was ready to talk more about my story and
Mm-hmm.
migraine disease in general. I was fearful for a very
Yep.
long time. I thought that I was going to go into politics and run
Oh,
for office and do all these things. And I said, if people know me, if they Google my name and migraine comes up, will that be used in a political attack ad? Is that something
right.
that can be leveraged against me? At this point, if I do run for office one day and it's used against me, it'll be something that I will definitely turn around because it's important to show people that this isn't a weakness, this isn't a deficit, this isn't something that makes us unreliable, that we are strong and resilient. And we should look at that and why that's important and why, as a society, we're not valuing those skills as much as some of the other things that we talk about. So, a lot of different reasons I got involved in it, but I am so happy that I did.
Right. I think that that's really important because you started out by saying, I told my story. And I think it's so important for people to understand that's advocacy. When you start telling your story, it's almost like coming out as a person with migraine, because I didn't tell my story for years and years and years. I just didn't like the way people reacted. I was worried about how they would react. I stayed quiet, and just telling your story is just how you start becoming an advocate for yourself and for the community. And I think that that's a very important point. And I love that you said that.
Yeah, I really, and I want to also say that I feel like it's important for me as a man, as a gay man, to talk about migraine because I didn't see that when I started doing this work. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing more of it, and we're seeing a really big effort to be more intentional with sharing stories that might not be traditionally migraine connected. Because if
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do this work professionally, I probably wouldn't be on the treatment that I'm on now, and I wouldn't be
Right.
living the best life that I could be living. And I do advocacy because there are so many people like me that are getting by, that are
Uh-huh.
doing okay, but are not doing great. And we all should be doing great. And advocacy will make sure that we all do great.
Oh, wow. Such a great point. Such a great point. So, Joe and I are going to do something that's never been done before here on Heads Up. So, as two people that live with, I had daily migraine until I was 30 years old, and I'm not sure how to categorize myself at this point. I don't know. I definitely have migraine. Let's put it that way. I don't know how often I get it. It varies very widely. But we have some favorite gadgets, favorite products that we love. And Joe, why don't you start with one of your favorites that you use to get you through the day?
I'm so excited for
I
show and
know.
tell. It's like show
I
and
don't
tell
know
back in
why we
elementary
got so
school.
excited. We're like, we're
When
going to
Lindsay
show
was like,
people
bring your things. I was like, what can I collect around my house? So I'm gonna turn my lights
some of the
off.
silly things we do. Not silly,
It's so
but
fun.
I didn't even think they're so second nature. I was like, what do I do? Joe disappeared. Ooh.
So this is something that I first heard and I was like, I don't know about this. It's called the Allay lamp, but I call it the ally lamp because I feel like it's an ally to my migraine struggles. And it's this green light that is very soothing. And
Uh-huh.
I just find that it helps me relax and
Right.
sleep better. And also you can adjust the sensitivity or the intensity of the light.
Right.
And I just really, I'm a firm believer, try everything, see what works, what doesn't work if you can. And this was one that is definitely a keeper and in my toolkit.
Okay. I'm laughing because I have always called it the ally lamp. I thought that was how we were supposed to say it. Is it really a
I
lay?
I think it's a lay, and I hope
Okay.
it's a lay,
It's
but
spelled Delay now that I
yeah,
think about it. Okay. And there is data behind the reason we have this. There's data behind green light therapy and migraine. And so this really does help some people. I think there's a desk unit that's smaller. Did you show the size of that one?
n-
Because
yeah,
I
this is like
know
a cylinder,
I'm trying
but the
to think.
desk one is smaller and it's
Yeah,
compact.
one of the advocates, I don't want to name them just in case, but I know someone who works with the smaller one on her desk all day. So a lot of us love that. Okay, should I go
Lindsay,
next?
I
Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing about this.
Yeah.
I got so sleepy the first time I used it, and
Oh,
I was like,
really?
this might be placebo, but it did something. I'm like, I went right to bed.
You went to bed. Okay, so I'm trying to think what I'm going to show. I'm going to show this first. I actually have it on my hand today. I work with this a lot. I don't know how many of you've seen this. I have a green one too. You can hardly see this on my skin color. This is an AccuLeaf. And when I first saw it, I was like, I have to have this. And what's funny is someone else was making fun of it. They were saying, oh, that's ridiculous. And I grabbed it because when I was a little girl, my dad, who also has chronic migraine, used to squeeze my hand here whenever I had a migraine. And it's a pressure point that is so helpful. See, oh, I love it. It's just one of those things. It's not going to cure you, but I used to think, wow, if someone could just squeeze my hand there all day, I would love it. And so when I saw this, I was like, whoa, what a simple idea. So while I'm working, I do that. I have a few of these around the house and I sit here with this on it. So this is one of my favorite little gadgets.
And it's an upgrade from chip clips. So
Yeah, and I
I've
have
done
done
that with
that.
the chip. I have too. Who
I
hasn't?
can't believe
Like,
you've done that. I did that
yes.
through
Who ha
college.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so funny. Okay. All right. What's your next favorite thing?
Well, this isn't necessarily migraine related, but I also
Okay.
want to talk about the importance of skincare and feeling good, especially as a
Okay.
man. We don't do that enough. So this is a good tinted moisturizer that
Okay.
just makes me feel better if you're having an attack and you feel run down. Just that
Okay.
little bit of pizzazz. And I think as men, we're taught to like not use things like that because it's
Uh-huh.
makeup and
Right.
makeup. We all could benefit from a little bit of makeup every now and then.
Oh, I believe in this. Do you know what I have to have done? Because if you have a migraine, and especially if it doesn't go away for a long time and you end up in bed and you never have shoes on, I have to have my nails done, my toenails, not my fingernails. I need color on them. And if they're ugly, they get on my nerves. So I would agree that some self-care makes you feel good when you're in pain and you're just unhappy. So I like that point. Okay, I have three things total. So we'll see if we get them all in there. So I think a lot, they have these at Retreat Migraines. So I know that most people in the migraine community have at least seen these. Ginger chews. I am one of those people with migraine who is constantly nauseous, especially middle of the day between 10 and 3. Lindsay's nauseous, promise. So I am always chewing on these. And they do help. Sometimes there's other things you can chew on. Peppermint candies help. But I definitely, if I'm not dying from the nausea, but I'm a little bit nauseous, I go for those. All right.
Love ginger.
Mhm.
My next show and tell item are Theraspecs, which I will clean actually
I
before I
was so
put them
hoping
on.
that like when you logged on, you'd be sitting there with a green light and Theraspecs on.
I think I'm going to keep these on for the rest of the interview because I love
Okay.
them.
Okay.
These are precision tinted glasses. Light sensitivity is one of my biggest
Okay.
issues.
Uh-huh.
Outside of attacks, I have it all the time, and I have
Hmm.
found these indoors to be really, really helpful, particularly when you can't control the lighting that you have in
Right.
a space.
Right.
And these are co-founded by a migraine advocate
Right.
that I met, Carrie. She's amazing. And I said, you know what, let me try it. This is my second pair. I gave my
Oh.
first pair to my brother who has epilepsy.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and when
And
he
they
was doing
help
a lot of
it?
he was doing a lot of screen time teaching from home last year,
Oh.
as a teacher, all that time on the screen, it was really bothering him. So I was like, try this. He felt like it relaxed his eyes and it didn't make
Huh.
the strain as bad. So I am a big believer in these. Again, they may work for me, they might not work for you, but it doesn't hurt to try putting something on your head if the pressure doesn't bother you, obviously. I
Right.
love them. Their specs are amazing.
Not only that, you look even more famous than you are
I
when you
know.
wear them
It's
inside.
like,
You
who
look
is that?
amazing.
But talking about stigma, I would be embarrassed to this day. I get like, I don't want to have to explain why I'm wearing this color glasses out.
Oh,
Like, it's like something that I've had to talk to friends about. Like, if we go to restaurants and like, I'm not
right.
wearing them to try to like be cool. I'm wearing them because the
Yeah,
light hurts my eyes.
exactly. Exactly. So I have one more thing. So I have a very particular, I've tried a lot of CBD products and I can't say that that's and I know a ton of people with migraine whose CBD has helped so much, but I have neck pain and jaw pain and a lot of pain that goes along with my migraine. And this is a balm. It's a CBD balm. It doesn't just have that in it. It has a ton of other things in it that for some reason, this particular one, I love it. All day when I'm working, I have this all over my neck. So I smell a little funny. Too bad I can't waft that through the screen so you know what it smells like. It smells good to me. It's like lavender. It's from a company called Press Pause, and it's just their CBD balm, and I love that. So that's one of those things for someone who's like me and sits all day in front of a screen and is one of those people that has all that kind of pain along with their migraine. So that is my third thing. So those are my top three things that I was like, what do I use every day? And I would say it's those three things. So you took your specs off. What the heck?
Didn't realize the ring light was like
It does. I
in
know.
it,
That's why I don't wear my
and I
glasses on the
know.
podcast.
And it was like bothering me. And my last thing is just a aromatherapy roller. This
Oh,
is a mint based one, which
uh-huh.
I love. I find that it's very soothing. You put it on on your points here and
Right.
on your temples, and it smells lovely and it just is relaxing.
I have
So
one of those too. Those are if they have a scent that's soothing to you, and I like those. Those are great. So let me move on to another advocacy question without giving away, your trade secrets or telling us your next like really huge step. What do you plan to do next in advocacy?
are no trade secrets in advocacy. We're all working together. Like that saying, rising tides raise all ships.
There you
So
go.
what I'm excited about with advocacy is season 2 of Talking Head Pain.
Okay.
We have interviewed a ton of folks that have really interesting stories to tell
Mm-hmm.
and really, really pumped about that being released.
Mm-hmm.
So stay on the lookout for that. Um, I am formally working with an amazing advocate who we brought onto our team, Sarah Renee Shaw, who many of you
Okay.
might know. And she's been doing amazing work with the BIPOC community,
Okay.
with Gen Z, which is an area that we can do a lot of outreach and really listen
Right.
to the younger folks,
Mm-hmm.
because we have a hard time sometimes, those of us that have been in this for a while and have lived with disease for a while, to take a step back and listen to people that might be newer on their journey and respect that. So that's
Right.
something we're doing a lot of work on. And I am personally invested in making sure that men that live with migraine and headache disorders are getting the treatment that they need, because I think a lot of us don't think that we have migraine and
Yeah.
we just think it's okay. And I've seen people in my life that, use a lot of OTC medication for headaches and migraine and could be really helped by seeing a neurologist or a primary care physician that even understands. So
Right.
it's really a passion for us. We're also looking at state legislation that is trying to harm migraine patients, like things like copay accumulator adjuster bills. And that's like a really fancy way of insurance companies stopping the copay cards that many of us use to access newer treatments to
Mm-hmm.
count towards our deductible. So if I have a $5,000 deductible and I get prescribed a treatment that I use a manufacturer copay card for, they pay up to the $5,000 of my deductible, and then the treatment is covered. Insurance companies in states are trying to stop that. They want me to physically pay the $5,000 out of
Right.
pocket. We're looking at bills and advocacy around non-medical switching. So if you're stable on a medication, why would an insurance company tell you to get off of it without any
Mm-hmm.
consultation with you or your physician? We're big believers at Global Healthy Living Foundation that the patient physician relationship is sacred and we have to
Mm-hmm.
respect that. And
Mm-hmm.
insurance companies are supposed to protect us and not harm us. So we work against non-medical switching. And then a big issue that we continually work on is fail first hurts, so otherwise known as step therapy, which
Right.
forces us to go on different treatments before we get the ones that are doctor prescribed. So all of these issues are things that are ongoing. Unfortunately, in our society, it's every day seems to be a fight, an advocacy fight. But you know what? At the Global Healthy Living Foundation, we're ready to fight with all of you and with groups like National Headache Foundation and all the advocates to make sure that people are getting what they need to live healthier, happier lives.
I love everything you just said. For some reason, one of the things that stuck out, I mean, all of it did, but the fail first therapy, I doubt there's a single person listening right now that doesn't find that frustrating. Everything you said was so awesome, and thank you for everything you're doing. Why do you think we feel so much better when we take part in advocacy?
I think when we feel powerless, we feel bad.
Yep,
And advocacy is us reclaiming our power.
exactly.
And like we said
Oh,
earlier, Lindsay, we can reclaim that power in all these different ways. I can reclaim it by putting up a picture of me having a migraine attack, which is
mhm,
something that some of us do sometimes to raise awareness. I can
right.
reclaim it by deciding today I am going to take the time I need to take care of myself. That's
Yeah,
advocacy. That's saying that my health matters and I'm going to do that for me. I
right.
could use advocacy to impact societal change by talking about my story and by raising awareness about the issues that we just talked about.
Hmm.
So it just gives us power. When you live with a chronic invisible disease and you have external forces that are telling you either you're less than, or you don't deserve this treatment, or it's not for you because your insurance company says so, we get so frustrated. And advocacy is a channel for us to take that frustration and really unleash it on the world and using that frustration for a positive.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Joe. And thank you everyone for listening to Heads Up, the weekly, webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. Please join us again next week. Bye-bye.